again, yesterday the crew just went and did a search of anything I'd ever said about Nelson Mandela and put it out. And when I said about Nelson Mandela and his wife was totally true, but I want to break it down within a larger context so people understand my real view of Nelson Mandela. And I'm by no means a expert on Nelson Mandela, but compared to the general public, I mean, I know literally 1,000 times more because I've actually tried to study it. And for anyone informed, that's why watching the news is like watching or tuning into the mind of someone on PCP. I mean, it does not resemble anything based in reality. And I have found African history, as well as many other histories, very, very interesting. So I've read a lot of history books from different perspectives on Africa. But let's just put it to you this way. The whole world's been barbarous and totally insane and murderous and unbelievably out of control. Africa has been as bloody or bloodier than any other place in history. And South Africa itself has been the epicenter of just unbelievable hell on earth for thousands of years. You had huge, different, diverse African tribes always battling for that area because it was very, very fertile and had a lot of resources. And Mandela was to be the king of one of the most powerful tribes in southern Africa, the Xhosa, if I'm pronouncing that right, Xhosa. And Winnie Mandela, his wife, and I'm just giving folks a quick snap gestalt on this, was a literal demon who would run around murdering African groups. Just to explain, folks, our media gives us this one-dimensional image that it's white people and black people killing each other in Africa. No, look at the Boer War that Winston Churchill was in when England invaded South Africa to attack the Afrikaners, the Dutch, and there was also French settlements. There was a whole bunch of settlements, folks. Everyone was killing everybody, okay, 24/7, and you'd have different white groups that allied with different black tribes, just like the French and Indian Wars, where you'd have the French with one group of Indians, natives, you'd have the British with another, you'd have the Spanish backed by another. This is the way the world was. And Hollywood and the media just totally dumb it down. And I'm not defending any group. I'm not an Afrikaner, never been to Africa, never been to South Africa. I'm not a French Afrikaner. I'm not a British, South African. None of this. I don't have a dog in the fight. I know there's South Africans that listen and, they know a lot more about it. In fact, perhaps we should open the phones up. That's a pretty good idea at the start of the next hour before our guest comes on to have, in fact, we're going to do that from South Africa or Zimbabwe or from people that are formerly from South Africa. Folks that left South Africa, whether they be black or white. If you were white, you pretty much had to leave because of the racial attacks. And you have it in other areas of Central Africa and other areas where the white farmers have all been run out and the society totally collapses. And you're seeing a lot of examples of that. So it's an incredibly complex, just incredibly complex issue. But you have to first understand that Nelson Mandela was born in the beginning of the last century, back in 1918 at the end of the of World War I. And he was set to basically become the king of a large area of South Africa. And when that failed and their imperial empire basically collapsed, he began working with the communists and then later with the Soviet Union through the 40s, 50s, and 60s to try to overthrow all of the countries in southern Africa and install a Marxist-Leninist dictatorship. So you're replacing one tyranny with one. I got to say, there's pretty much nothing worse than a Marxist-Leninist or Stalinist state. Look at North Korea as a Stalinist state. I mean, there's nothing worse. Nothing worse. Okay, so my whole issue is they made it all this big cause celeb, and what you had is you had basically a bunch of rich Dutch people and French and British and others who were always fighting with each other. And the British elites basically came in, hyped up Hollywood, made a deal with the De Beers and the Oppenheimers, the owners of the diamond system, to come in and kick out some of the rich white people that were there and take it over. And then make things, I don't know, let's not exaggerate, 5 times worse for them. So they just traded one slavery for another, and that's what Nelson Mandela did. And we're going to explain it all. He didn't go with the commies. He went with James Baker and the Bushes, And that's the story of South Africa. We'll be right back to tell you all about it straight ahead. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com None Dare Call It Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. In understanding Nelson Mandela, you understand a key area of history, a nexus point that is South Africa, that has decided the destiny of the great continent of Africa, and hence the Middle East and the rest of the world into Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Western Europe. All of this is interconnected. And it's so frustrating to be doing research again to just double check my memory on South Africa and all the books and films and documentaries I've watched on the subject, to be looking at photos of British concentration camps. And if you go to Wikipedia, just type in Boer War, or Encyclopedia Britannica, type in Boer War or Boer War, B-O-E-R, wars. So there's actually a bunch of them, 2 big ones, about 10 small ones. The British did what they'd done all over the world. They put tens of thousands of whites, just pointing out there's nothing to do with Africans at that time, folks actually from Africa, put them in concentration camps to starve them to death. And if the crew can do that, if you just type in Boer War and then go to Wikipedia and then scroll down to the photos at the bottom, you can see children being starved to death. Looks just like Nazi Germany with the Jews. Now, why do I intersperse this? Because you have to understand that Nelson Mandela's father, the king of one of the major tribes, actually sided with the British in this, and then later flip sides. It's very complex. So the point is that Nelson Mandela couldn't be king of South Africa. I mean, no one ever says he was royalty. I just, again, the history they give, and you know how much I hate royalty, folks. I mean, it's nothing to do with him being black. I just really am disgusted by royalty. Now, he actually did some stuff on his own and had a lot of courage and was very smart. So I admire him from the perspective of being a very powerful individual. In fact, admire is not even the proper word. I respect him. I respect Adolf Hitler, even though I don't like Adolf Hitler. I respect Joseph Stalin or Mao Zedong. Now, I don't want to say that Mandela was a Hitler or a Mao. He doesn't come to that level. He's a more complex figure than that. I've really tried to figure out over the years, as I've done many people, who Nelson Mandela really was. But the point is, his wife is a would-be Hitler. That's why he probably divorced her, Winnie Mandela, who would personally torture people to death herself, mainly black folks, because it's mainly black folks down there. So everybody's fighting over resources. And so you've got the tribes constantly killing each other. And if you go back to the Boer War and you look at it, because that's where this all starts, fought from 1880 to 1902. So over 22 years, these different wars. The Boer Wars, literally freedom wars, were 2 wars fought by the British Empire against the Afrikaners of 2 independent Boer republics, the Orange Free State, and then it goes into the other republics. So that's all it was a big fight over stuff. And that's why elites always want to disarm people. Whether the Boers, whether the Afrikaners were good guys or not, whether the British Empire was the good guys, nobody was probably the good guys. The point here is it's all from your perspective, but that's why the British Empire wants their subjects disarmed, because then they don't have to fight you when they enslave you. And we can put on screen the tens of thousands of people in concentration camps. That's where Hitler got it. was from the British, who first used it in the Revolutionary War here in the United States when they were colonies. That was invented in America for use against whites. Then it was deployed against Indians, the reservation system after it. The British government, the British New World Order, invented this. Let's just get this straight. Now, the British government comes along in the 70s and hires, I'm oversimplifying this, Hollywood, to basically put movies out showing white people torturing and killing black people all day so that they could come into South Africa politically, unseat it, get Nelson Mandela out of prison, set him up to be the leader, 27 years in terrible conditions. He definitely turned. And then he basically sold out South Africa, and it's conservatively, depending on the numbers you see, 5 times worse than it was. Mass killing everywhere. Blacks murdering blacks in mass. And the media just totally covers it up. They've run off almost all the whites. The whites that live there live in these high-security compounds with other rich blacks in places like Johannesburg. Has one of the highest crime rates in the world because they've taken the citizens' guns. And it's total political correctness and basically a Soviet model of race war in slow motion of what they want to do in Europe and the United States. So the South African model by the Oppenheimers and by De Beers, their front company. I mean, it's the same thing. Cecil Rhodes and De Beers wanted to take over South Africa in 1880, so they came in when the diamonds got discovered and gold and all this. That's all this is. And someone who knows history, it's so frustrating to sit here and to watch this and to sit here and see this unfold and to know what's really going on and to know what Nelson Mandela did and how he used sports, quote, to get everybody to be racially friends. That's not what really happened. And it's just all a lie. And they just go, oh, my gosh, he's like Jesus. He's the greatest man who ever lived. And it's just like a total fraud. He's an African royal, and the globalists only deal with other royals. And they basically, he lost trying to team up with the Soviets. So they put him in jail for 27 years. And then he came over to their side. And all they did was kick out any middle class that was in South Africa and anybody that knew how the infrastructure was operated because they'd owned it and run it. And then the communists just came in and wrecked it, and now the diamond workers and everybody are even in worse shape, and they call it a civil rights movement to not let any African country mine their own diamonds and sell them so they get money. They call those blood diamonds, and it's the opposite. They actually keep everybody enslaved to keep the price of diamonds up by artificial scarcity. And the average person doesn't know that and have to watch all Bono and all these Hollywood people about, oh, don't buy diamonds unless they're certified by De Beers, which makes sure it's basically slave labor. It's like everything you're told is the opposite of what's really going on. And David, we'll have to get into the gun thing. This a lieutenant colonel at West Point saying we're going to take your guns, we're going to ban your guns, and we're going to take them from your cold, dead hand. That quote's now up on Infowars.com, that article, because we only got a few minutes before this other report to get into this. But I hired you because you're a smart engineer and you've studied history as well. It's addicting once you learn about it. You always want to learn more, but it's very painful to then run into people that just go, oh, you're just racist. You don't like Nelson Mandela. It's like this mindless feel-good thing like that Miss Teen USA that said, you know, what do we do to help American test scores? And she goes, such as South Africa, helping. I mean, it's literally, you don't know how to tie your shoelaces, but you know how to go, Mandela, Mandela, Mandela. And it's totally frustrating that they have no idea that they basically traded one set of masters who were actually reforming. They always use reform. Like Assad started reforming in Syria, they used that to bring in al-Qaeda to overthrow him. Same thing with Gaddafi. People say, well, why are you defending Gaddafi? Because he was much better than what they've done now, al-Qaeda. Just like I'm not defending the white Afrikaners that had a racist system. I just knew that they actually were building things up and actually helping people compared to communists. I mean, that's what I'm saying is I don't want apartheid, but I don't want to live under Joseph Stalin either. I knew it was a globalist, commie, banker takeover, so that's why I would simply pointed out, hey, this is what's happening. And if the Africans knew that, and if the American people knew that, and if the cause celebs knew that, we could have actually reformed things, had real unity, and used South Africa in the south and Libya in the north, which is what Gaddafi wanted to do, to jack up Africa politically out of the mud and actually build it up. But the globalists don't want that. And I mean, it's like Coney 2012. Hadn't been seen in 7 years now. It was 6 years. We're going to invade Africa because this guy's a bad guy who's hiding in the jungle somewhere. He's actually dead. Now they're invading most of the countries, north, south, west, killing people with UN drones. and saying it's to get Coney. And because they know the general public just goes, Coney, blow up all of Africa, nuke the whole continent, or you're for Coney. Well, then let South Africa be enslaved, or you're against black people. You know, it's the same mindlessness, David Knight.
Well, you know, racism is a tactic, quite frankly, just like communism is a tactic, fascism is a tactic. And the elite always use this to oppress the people. What they do is they say, well, we've had fascism for a while, so now we're going to have communism, and you're going to be free. It's going to be completely different. Or we've had racism for a long time, so now we're going to have communism. The fact of the matter is that Mandela fought against racism, which was a good thing. But he did it with communism, which is just a different evil. And you got people that don't want to talk about this. I saw somebody write that now is not the time to talk about the history of this historical figure. Well, the reality is that they are talking about this historical figure. They're making him into a saint. And if you ignore both the warts as well as what he did well, then you're not going to really get an accurate picture of it. And once they make him into a saint, then nobody will be able to talk about him without being tagged as a racist. And as we see in this country, racism is a tactic for the ruling elite.
Well, they're racialist, exactly. It's a divide and conquer. The British Empire has written published books hundreds of years ago that are on record, how to do this. That's what they're doing. And then they'll use old wounds to keep the wounds open and engage in new wounds. We're going to air a special report here, and then we come back from break. We're going to get into this Army colonel who openly says he, quote, will get the guns out of our cold, dead hands. We're going to do that, but very eloquently said. That's why I love David Knight, folks. He could crystallize what I tried to say in 10 minutes down to just a little blurb. And then James Baker went over there when he got out of prison, was the first person to talk to him when he got out of prison. The first world leader was Secretary of State James Baker, with that whole setup with the British Empire to literally betray Africa again. And they have betrayed South Africa. I want prosperity for South Africa, and it's undoubtedly many times worse than it was. You judge a tree by its fruits. And Mandela literally was just someone who was basically broken and programmed in prison. And people have to be honest about that and not let them create a saint so that he can't be questioned. Perfectly crystallized, David Knight. Now, here is a special report and also operational promotion to be able to stay on the air, folks, and keep expanding the operation. It's quite an issue to deal with something that helps everybody across the board, and that, of course, is Fluoride Shield. And so here is a piece that we put together on this new proprietary development that we put together with Dr. Group and Anthony Gucciardi, and it is simply amazing, just like the nascent iodine and also the Super Male Vitality we've come out with. InfoWarsLife.com, here it is. The facts are in. The studies are legion. Sodium fluoride and other members of the fluorine family that are added to Western water supplies are devastating the health and cognitive ability of the people that drink it. So the question is, why are the social engineers adding it to the water? Simple. Dumb down the host population that the parasitic technocracy is feeding on. Destroy our health, make us weak. Now, we're battling to get fluoride removed out of the water, and we've been successful in some cities in the U.S., Canada, England, and Germany. But in most areas, the poison is still being added. We can't get it out of the water supply yet, but we can get it out of our bodies. There is a way to fight back. The reason I have launched InfoWars Life is because in my own research, trying to figure out how to detox my body and how to live a healthier life and how to take care of my children, I did more and more research on substances that are known on record to help block fluoride and other toxins, but also help strip them out and cleanse them from the body. And talking to medical doctors, scientists, researchers, nutritionists, different compounds continued to come up in their research separately to be the best at detoxing and cleansing the body. And for the first time ever, this product did not exist. I'm quite frankly shocked that nobody else developed it. We can now bring you Fluoride Shield, Fluoride Detox. But again, it doesn't just detox fluoride. The 6 substances in Fluoride Shield have been shown on record to battle and to cleanse and to strip out these known poisons that are wreaking havoc inside our bodies. We developed Fluoride Shield to be the highest quality, highest standards, because I use it every day and my family uses it every single day. And the results that I have experienced have been dramatic. Let's take a closer look at the ingredients that make up this special proprietary formula. Tamarind has been celebrated for its ability to immobilize toxic fluoride residues, while zeolites have a long history of attracting and holding toxic compounds. Enter fulvic acid, an excellent cleansing agent that was included in the formula to displace fluoride from key areas of the body. Then we added the highest quality shilajit, a rare compound that is collected from the high mountains of the Himalayas and that has been used for thousands of years by Tibetans to cleanse the body. We topped it all off with the powerhouse herb cilantro that is intended to mobilize fluoride and other dangerous compounds for removal from the body. And the final touch to energize this formula is our proprietary nascent iodine. The ingredients in Fluoride Shield were carefully selected from thousands upon thousands of herbs, minerals, and nutrients. Whatever you do, it's imperative to go to InfoWarsLife.com and read our entire informational write-up on Fluoride Shield, because these compounds don't just strip the body of unwanted fluoride. It targets mercury and a whole other list, and the documentation is at InfoWarsLife.com. And as always, consult your physician as well, because that is important. And finally, Fluoride Shield, Survival Shield, and all the products at InfoWarsLife.com grew out of my quest to try to find the very best compounds from God's cornucopia to protect myself and my family. And from our research, I believe we are bringing you the best, highest quality products. And you have that commitment from Alex Jones and the entire InfoWars crew, because these products are also helping fund our First Amendment operation, the radio, the TV, the magazine, the films that reach tens of millions of people a week. We're not funded by the globalists. We don't get taxpayer money like NPR or MSNBC with stimulus money. We are funded by our sponsors and our listeners who support us. So from the bottom of my heart to all of the InfoWars family, thank you for your support and your continued support. Because of your support, we have been able to change history together. All right, folks, we are back live. We're going to break in 1 minute, and we're going to come back and break down this traitorous Army colonel at West Point teaching the new officer corps that the Second Amendment does not exist and that our guns will be taken. And the rest of the West Point training, it's in Forbes and Washington Times and Associated Press. They're training to confiscate our guns. One more thought on Nelson Mandela. This is what frustrates me so much. You got 4 big tribes, dozens of other little tribes, all killing each other constantly. If you're not part of that tribe, they literally will kill you. Now, Mandela tried to unify that, and that was a positive thing. But it's the same thing. That's what, it's not even racism, it's tribalism. Just like the whites wouldn't let you in their club if you weren't Dutch, or then you had French that were only in their club that were white. This is tribalism, and under political correctness, they're not trying to get rid of it. They're trying to stir it up, is what I'm getting at.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Folks, one last little piece of history about Nelson Mandela in South Africa. One reason I've read so many books about it is it's so entertaining. I mean, it's like reading histories of the West. It was like America, and that all these poor people from all over the world, including India, including the Middle East, not just Anglos, other Africans would try to get there and get off ships at the Horn of Africa or down there in southern Africa. I guess they call it the Cape. And the point is, the Horn's up in Somalia, the Cape. I'm again going through all this history just from background, but yes, the Cape of Good Hope and Cape Town. And then you had the British basically able to grab the south, the central, and the far eastern piece, but then there were only 2 little pieces that were kept by the Dutch, the French, and others. And again, they all hated each other even more than the blacks, because that tribally was their tribal warfare. And then you had the blacks all hating each other even more than the whites. And it's just so frustrating. It's all the exact same type of human behavior, tribalism. And tribalism is why Africa has always had so many problems, is because they always engage in tribal warfare. Well, every other culture's done that as well. And then that's the argument for empire. It comes in and stops the tribalism. The problem is these empires then keep tribalism going to keep everyone under control with the empire. And then this is a predatory New World Order empire that wants us all disarmed, all disowned of property, all disowned of rights. So the New World Order is a new corporate colonialism that is anti-free market, anti-individual, and is colonizing the mind. Now, I'm done. I'm done talking about it. It's just that I'm just thinking about how insane South Africa has been. I mean, the wars there make anything in the U.S. look like a joke, folks. And I want to talk to folks who are Dutch Afrikaners, French Afrikaners, Black Afrikaners, Zulus. If you're part of Mandela's tribe, I'm not attacking you because I'm not worshiping Mandela. I mean, it's just so frustrating, all this tribal warfare stuff, where I point out the West brought in Muslims to attack the Serbs. The Serbs fought back. They called it ethnic cleansing. And then the West came in and bombed the country and gave Albania a third of Serbia. I'm not Albanian. I'm not Serb. I just know the New World Order is going in and destroying nation states, and that's why I'm frustrated. And let's finish up with South Africa. We'll get into this traitorous professor later in the next hour, because I think we've run out of time here, David Knight. But other points on what I just said.
Well, you're absolutely right, Alex. And we've got tribes here in the U.S. We've got a tribe of Republicans and Democrats. It's one of the reasons why the founders opposed partisan politics, because they knew that it would be used to divide and to conquer.
They said it would cause tribalism.
Absolutely. And so what's important is about the individual, and it's about individual rights. And that's essentially what's going on with this debate that got drug up again by this West Point instructor, former West Point instructor. He's taking a collectivist, statist view of the Second Amendment. Not that it's about individual rights, not that it's about establishing the right of the people to keep and bear arms.
It's
no,
the
for him,
right of the state, which is the super elite royal tribe.
Exactly.
And their ideas are what we must adopt in collectivism. That's slavery.
Exactly. So everything is about divide and conquer. Everything is about breaking us into competing groups. Sports reinforce that. You're talking about the boycotting of the NFL. I mean, team sports are really about getting people back into this tribalistic mindset. And they can easily then transfer that into the political realm, because people are much more interested in watching a sports pageant. But once you get into this them versus us type of mentality, it's very easy to do that. That's what we saw happening there. And as I pointed out before, communism does not mitigate racism. You know, it's not a way to substitute one for the other. It's just a different kind of control technique.
Well, and then they use getting rid of racism as a way to reaffirm the differences and then selectively enforce it. But it's just like the Ford versus Chevy, where it shows the little character urinating on the symbol. People get in fights over, I like Ford, I like Chevy, I like Dodge. It's they have no culture. It's like Cowboys versus the 49ers. It's just it's a fake culture. And notice the globalists attack anything that's a real culture, folks. Don't give up your culture, no matter what it is. Be proud of it and be proud of other cultures as well. But don't give up your culture and turn against any plastic culture. Renowned author and expert Joel Skousen breaks down the globalist plan to shut down America and stage a new world war.
In one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early.
Coming to the InfoWar in November is our new documentary film presentation.
Strategic relocation is a systematic way to think strategically in the future about how do I safeguard.
Joel Skousen, Strategic Relocation.
The freeways are going to be crowded, they're going to run out of gasoline, they're going to run out of food, and then they're going to start to go north and south of those freeways.
Joel Skousen is renowned as one of the world's foremost experts in strategic relocation and the securing of your home.
We talk about natural disasters, the health environment, we talk about pollution, the water quality. My personal experience about being in every one of these states.
Government is digging in for the organized, incremental collapse of society and world war.
The U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic.
There is no preparedness without strategy.
What I tell people is that you do have time. Prepare wisely in advance.
This Christmas, give the gift of preparedness. Strategic Relocation, the film, with Joel Skousen and Alex Jones.
With the death of Nelson Mandela, we've been discussing tribalism, which is how humans have organized themselves for all of our history, which works fine if you're a band of people out in the middle of nowhere and share kinship, and there's another group that wants to, basically take your hunting lands from you. That's how you operate. But the globalists, the empires, going back to Rome and before, they scientifically studied tribes and how to manipulate them. And I have read, no exaggeration, let's not exaggerate, I don't know, 30, 40, probably more, books by the British Empire, published for the British Empire, published by the Roman Empire, published by anthropology, sociology textbooks. And that's really what the elite are into, is how they manipulate you. And their culture is really eugenics, ultra-slavery, hatred of humanity, mega-authoritarians. And how do you explain that to somebody that's been raised on NFL tribalism, or Ford versus Chevy, or Coke versus Pepsi? I mean, you see how they do this everywhere. And then it turns out Coke and Pepsi are basically interlocking corporations, the same people. It's like England has 2 big grocery store chains. And it turns out they're owned by the same people. And it's just, we're literally under a colonization of the mind. I want to free people's mind because I think everybody's beautiful and great and has interesting attributes. The problem is once someone's bought into collectivism and has been programmed by tribalism, it doesn't matter if you individually don't hate them. They hate you because of your color. And even if you try to talk them out of it, they think they have power over you now in political correctness. If you're one of the chosen bad groups, just reverse racism, I'm the bad white person. And then there's no way to deprogram most of those folks because the social engineers have done this for so long. This is their identity. Their culture is being racially upset with the social race pimps, the race hustlers, reaffirming on top and manipulating the entire program. And when you look at tribalism, I've realized more and more, we have to act like sports teams. We have to put our ideas out very simply and then connect them to the more complex ideas to counter folks that are like zombies. And that's what I've said. We need to have our own gangs. People go, what, like Crips and Bloods? No, 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 no. Or the Ku Klux Klan? No, 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 no. I'm saying Second Amendment, property rights, liberty, free market. That's why the establishment, the left today, attacks the movie Scarface so much, because it backfired on them. Because you've got this entrepreneur character, even though he's a bad guy, he's a good guy at the end, doesn't kill kids, makes the right decision at the end. And he says, I like everybody but a communist. That's slavery. You want somebody telling you what to eat, what to sleep, what to do? You want to not have enough food to eat? You want a rat on every corner telling you what to do? We have to literally fight this communist collectivism with our own tribalism of forget what color you are. It's what Martin Luther King actually said. Even though the left tried to control him and communist, he was getting away from them. That's why they killed him, because he was getting off the whole left-right reservation. Judge someone by the content of their deeds and their heart and how they act and what they do. You judge a tree by its fruits. Not what they say on the surface, but what do they actually do? And Nelson Mandela was only a puppet and a front man, though he was a very interesting, smart guy. I'm not saying that he was an interesting guy and a manly man, big warlord king of the whole area of Africa. Notice the media never says that. Like, he just came from nowhere, a nice person over here, and everyone grovels to him in fear because of, whatever. When you really get down to the end of the day, he totally, to get out of prison, and I don't know, 27 years in solitary confinement, I say I won't sell out, but I don't know. The point is he came out and totally sold everybody out. And that's why all the CFR, New World Order people are worshiping him. So I want to get calls from South Africa, 800.
Hello, this is Hank Hill, And I'm telling you what, you need to listen to Alex Jones.
Yeah. Infowars.com.
Judge, what is the secret of the universe?
Infowars.com.
Well, Nelson Mandela, at 95 years of age, died. And we covered in the last hour what really happened in South Africa, how the British government wanted to break down the country to replace one form of tyranny with another. But we've already covered that. We're going to cover it more. I'd like to hear specifically from people in South Africa, or if you live in Australia, the United States, Europe, if you've left South Africa, if you're a black South African, white South African, French South African, because they're all in different groups, Dutch South African, mixed South African, whatever. What is your take on how South Africa is now, 20 years after Mandela? Because it's been about 20 years since he was in there as president. What is your take on the divide and conquer that's now taking place and how they use that opportunity for unity, I believe for division, but you know more about it than I do. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. You got to dial your country code and call in on that or use your IP phone to do that. It's 800-259-9231. I know there's a direct line folks can call as well. And John Harmon up there on the network, you want to come on air and tell folks that number, because I should have had that, but I'm on the road today.
Sure, that number is 1, or the international number would be 00 and then 1 and then 651-695-7755. Those are for international callers.
And you're on air right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, because I'm in East Texas from a funeral. They're in Austin at the InfoWars News Center, and then you're in Minnesota. And thank you very much, John Harmon. And again, give that number out one more time.
That's 001-651-695-7755.
All right, we should get John Harmon on air more often. So please call in. We'd like to hear from you, whether you're an expatriate or whether you're visiting the United States or whether you're listening on the internet. I know we get calls routinely from South Africa. I know it's caused quite a stir when I've been on South African radio shows. And they've actually had the government try to tell them not to have me back on anymore. I mean, that's the type of tyranny now that's going on there. So they've replaced one form of oppression with another. And it's statistically much worse, as folks said it would be. See, you're like, what, are you for apartheid? No. I'm saying the globalists are even more evil than this on record. And they are going to want to totally oppress everybody and social engineer them. It's like the Borg versus, you know, some good old boys who actually want prosperity. And again, we need tribalism of liberty, not tribalism of race or even religion.
Now you can watch the InfoWars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.